I was an intern for 4 years. The first 2 years was with a male rabbi in a small synagogue in Santa Monica. And it was a very standard traditional rabbinic role. You know, you were on the bima, they were in the congregation. There was kind of a barrier between you. I mean, it was very nice, but it was kind of the kind of rabbi I'd always seen before. Then I came and was your intern for 2 years, and it like turned my vision of what it means to be a rabbi upside down. It completely changed the possibilities of what a rabbi could be and what she could do. And that I owe a lot of my own behavior as a rabbi to you. So we're going to talk about that. But first, we're just going to start from the beginning a little bit, because first of all, Miriam is from Israel. And I also wanted to be a rabbi when I was younger, but I had some role models of woman rabbis or reform rabbis. Your idea was different. So you shared with me you always wanted to be a rabbi. So give us a little bit about your background and why you wanted to be a rabbi.
Well, as Susan, as you have mentioned, I was born and raised in Israel and served in the army for 2 years. And I grew up where I grew up was a little town called Azur, which is just outside of Tel Aviv, and it's considered as a suburb of Tel Aviv today. But at the time, it was somewhat isolated with fields of growth and vegetations and so on. My role model as a rabbi, of course, was the village's rabbi. He was a very stern-looking man, with Orthodox, of course, with a long capota, with a long jacket. He had on black, of course, every time. He had a very long beard, and he was very stern all the time. I never saw a smile on his face. So when he approached us, or me, we happened to be walking on the same side of the street. I will go over to the other side of the street so I wouldn't have to engage him because he was like mightier than might. So I will just wave to him from the other side of the street and say hello. So
why did you want to be a rabbi?
So one day on Simchat Torah, I was about 8 years old. And on Simchat Torah, I went to an Orthodox school where boys and girls were divided, elementary school. And all my friends from school were dancing with their fathers in the Torah and so on. And then it was my father's turn, and he was holding the Torah and dancing with him. I spontaneously ran into the circle, and I wanted to dance with the Torah with my father also. I immediately was hushed out from the circle, ripped my hands off the Torah, and said, "Girls don't go. The girls don't touch. Girls don't dance." I was really shocked, and on the way home, my father was 6 foot something, and on the way home, holding my little hands in his big hand, and I said, "Abba, why was I able to dance with the Torah the way my friends from school were?" And he said, "Because you are a girl." I said, "So what if I have a girl?" He says, "No, girls don't touch the Torah. The Torah is holy, and we girls don't touch it. Mirale, one day you'll understand." Well, that was the moment that really changed my life. And in 8th grade, as many of you know, in Israel, you have to make a decision what kind of high school you're going to go to. If you're going to go to a vocational, technical, what kind of high school you want to go is the direction that they already, after 8th grade, they're channeling you to know and to do what you're going to do when you're going to be big. I told my father I want to be a teacher. He was a school principal himself. And he says, Mirale, school teachers don't make a lot of money, and I want you to be an independent woman. And that came from somebody who was an Auschwitz survivor, who literally was raised until he was taken away in a shtetl, just like on Fiddler on the Roof. That 45 years after the Holocaust, when I went back, they still had the well of water. They still didn't have paved roads. They still had a very backwards, but I had the opportunity to see the shtetl kind of life. And so he said to me, I want you to be an independent person living independently. I want you to be able to support yourself. So I was sent to a technical school. I studied to be a mechanical draftswoman. And of course, in the Army, I worked for 2 years in it, designing the first Israeli tank, the Merkava. But that moment was a turning point where I said, this has to be changed. Just because I was born as a woman, it doesn't mean I can, God forbid, defile in any way the Torah, in any way the Torah. And I said to my father, I want to become a rabbi. And he said, at 8th grade. And he says, but there are no women rabbis. There is no such thing. He says, but I said, therefore, I want to be a teacher. And that's how it all evolves.
So you were a teacher for many years. You ran schools and you did that. And then you had the opportunity to go to rabbinical school. We could talk about, what your family thought about it, but I want to get to something else. You decided that you were going to start your own shul. You were going to start your own, and did you have an idea of what it would be like, or how would it follow somebody else's model? How did you create the model of the synagogue that you run today?
Well, it's very interesting because I knew from the very beginning that I want to become a congregational rabbi, because this is where my heart was, engaging the people, engaging the congregants, be able to influence with teaching and so on. So even during rabbinical school, it's not, I never wanted to be the rabbi that, let's say, that works in the hospital only, or a rabbi who is a teacher in a community center or something. In other words, my goal was always to be a congregational. It just happened to be that on a trip to San Francisco, after my husband recovered from a 7 bypass heart surgery, on the trip, I got a phone call from somebody that I knew and said, they are beginning a new congregation. There is a small group of people, and there were like 13 couples and singles who wanted to start a new synagogue. Would you like to come? And I said, of course. And but I'm on a trip. I'll send you my resume and we'll see what happens. And it was, I went to for an interview after returning. I went to an interview, and later on I understood that I was competing against somebody who was an Orthodox with a beard again. And I was accepted to the synagogue as their rabbi. For a month, I was doing services and so on. And at the time, did I know which direction I want to go? Not really at all. I just wanted to go in the direction of my heart. That's something that I knew that was very, very important to me, because having a rabbi modeled for me that was very stern, I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew what I did not want. And so that made a difference. I told during my interview that I'm not looking to create and buy or build a building, because I knew I'm not good in asking people for money. And I knew that I wanted to teach, and I knew that I did not want to be to have a contract, because I wanted to be free. I knew that I did not want to belong to a denomination, any one of the denominations, because I did not want it to be pegged into a box, like I have in my, first upbringing in the Orthodox world. So I followed my heart, and that worked out for me.
So when I go to your synagogue, it's mainly on Shabbat morning, and it always starts with an hour of study, which is it's from 9 to 10 is study. And you teach first, because you believe teaching is so important, as a part of it. You insist there's teaching in every aspect, right? Of anything. And then you have services, but I watched you, and where did you get this idea that you would talk to the community, you talk to the congregants, you ask them questions, you ask them to participate in the service? I've never seen that before. Till I went, where the rabbi, she would say, look at this prayer. What line in this prayer speaks to you this morning? Because you'll be different next week, but what speaks to you? And then where did you get those ideas like that?
It just came through my heart. There was no special idea or goal. It just came to my heart because of my knowledge in Hebrew and the deep understanding of truly the tree. Please forgive me, but I'm just sharing something very personal, that I have a very deep understanding of prayer. And I really, when I pray, I really go deeply into prayer. And I was concerned that maybe the people I'm serving don't understand what they are saying. So it was very important for me that they will understand what they are saying, what they're uttering, what they are requesting, what they are communicating with God. That was very important to me. So I would stop, and I still do, stop the service in the middle and ask, what does this mean to you? What does this meaning, excuse me, what is this meaning in your heart? What does it mean to your heart? So the worship through the heart is what is one of the pivotal connections that I think I need to have, and I hope all people will have with God, the connection through the heart. And so for people to know what they are saying, how they are saying, what does it mean, is very, very important. And that's why many times I stop the service in the middle. And that's why many times, for almost 18 years since the establishment of Ahavat Torah, that we have the ethics classes that I teach in the mornings for early comers, for those who come from 9 o'clock to 10 before we start services. It's important. And I think through the ethics, through the classes of ethics, I was able also to shape the congregation, how we feel towards one another, how we speak to one another. And I think this is vital to have an ethical congregation. So when we have our board meetings, we never fight. We treat one another with great kavod, with great respect and understanding. So even when we disagree, you know what I mean?
So another thing that I noticed in your service when I was your intern, I've talked about this. So when you carry the Torah around, the Hakafah, which is because they have a Shabbat morning service, and everybody kisses the Torah. I'm walking behind Miriam down the congregation, and people are kissing the Torah, and Miriam is kissing every single person. Every person she's kissing. And I'm standing behind her and I'm thinking, okay, well, I guess I should kiss them too. Unfortunately, now with COVID, I don't know if we'll ever go back to that kind of kissing, but how did you even think you could do that? You know, that where did that, I mean, that you could hug and kiss and she would stop and talk to everyone individually. No one felt left out. And what kind of feeling did that create for you and for the community?
You know, Susan, that's again, the worship of the heart. When I see my people, I'm so happy. I'm sincerely so happy to see them. So happy to meet them on Saturday mornings or whenever we meet. I'm so happy. In my way, I guess it's Israeli way, is kissing on both sides and just say, how are you doing today? And it was natural. You know, I was not, I don't know why, but I was not worried, maybe because I'm older, but I was not worried about sexual harassment. And it was before all these things that came up as far as sexual harassment, the Me Too movement and so on. I was not worried about it for some reason. And so I was able to do that. And when you're right, because that's when I hug them and kiss them is when I get to know how are they really doing. Not like in passing by, but how are you really doing? And if I got a twitch that somebody is not doing very well, they got a phone call from me on Sunday.
So this, I don't think a male rabbi would do. This is I've never seen one that, so this is part of what I call the feminine style, this ability to have this kind of intimacy or emotional closeness, but you even bring it further because how does your own personal home, how is that part of your rabbinical style and your rabbinical, world?
Before Corona, I every Wednesday, like today, Baruch Hashem, I conducted the Torah service of the week, the Torah portion of the week, teaching in my home. So one day, people got to know, everything about my home.
And is it for lunch? Is it for lunch or coffee?
Also, yes, of course. It was also for lunch, and everybody will bring something, a dish. I will make the main dish, and everybody else will bring a dish, and then we shared it together. And while we studied, so we ate and we studied because I didn't want to waste any time. And so one day, one of the participants went to the kitchen and got a certain dish because he knew where it was, and he got it for what he needed to transfer the food into a dish. So I said, this is pretty good that somebody will come to the rabbi's house and they know where to find a dish that they need. So
you think that's usual?
I think it is. It hit
and not to you, but to rabbis.
I think it's highly unusual because they teach that there has to be some kind of separation between the rabbi and the congregant. And I think maybe because I grew up in Israel and there is less of that style of creating a wall or some kind of separation between you and it, whatever it is. I think it is unusual. Yeah.
And you have a sukkah at your house, and you have people from the community at your sukkah in your house. But just talking about Israel for a minute, I know you walk around wearing a kippah all the time, like a lot of, yes. So how do people in Israel respond when they see a woman walking around with a kippah? What's your experience there?
I have to take a deep breath because in the beginning it was not seen well at all. It was a reason for mockery. It was a reason to down talk to me in very dishonorable way. It was very difficult. But after each experience, sometime somebody, even at the intersection light, got out of his car and asked me, what is this kippah doing on your head? Like in an accusatory way. And I said, I'm a rabbi, and this is how I identify myself. And then I rolled up my window. But not only with strangers, it was even between my childhood friends that had a very hard time with it. And I said, you know what? You're not used to it now, but me keeping it on, and you'll get used to it with time. And every time somebody disrespected me in that way, I took it to heart and I felt very bad about it. But I said, this is the role of trailblazers. They go through suffering because people around them feel strange or weird. So I said, I have to keep my kippah on. One time on the beach in Israel, I was sitting and having a watermelon with a friend, and a kid, maybe 12 years old, came and ripped the kippah off my head. The waiter ran after him and got my kippah back. By the time he came back, I had tears in my eyes and I was crying. It wasn't for the kippah. It was for the humiliation and the borut. Borut is absolute zero knowledge about something. And that kid, I hope, learned what he has done. That was wrong, very wrong.
Very disrespectful.
Very disrespectful. But that's the role of trailblazers, I believe.
So now in your synagogue, I mean, our senior rabbi leader, when he talks about Wilshire Boulevard Temple, he says, we make Jews. That's what our role is. We make Jews. And which is fantastic. And we do it in all different ways. But I'm curious, what do you think the most important values that your synagogue or a synagogue should teach? And do you think it has anything to do with, do you think they're different than a male rabbi would have? Or do you think there are feminine values that you've incorporated that may be new or that are becoming popular that never used to be?
Well, it's a very good question. And I think the role of synagogues, or my synagogue, or my vision as it developed, is number one is to create a loving, strong Jewish identity, a loving, strong Jewish identity. And I think in this order, I think this is crucial, that we would be a compassionate community, that the people will have a sense of belonging, that we would treat one another with kindness, with respect, with love, with peace in our hearts.
So what happens when you have political differences?
Oh, we do. I mean, particularly now, we have political differences. And I try very hard that politics should stay out of the community, because it is divisive. And what people need to know is that this division will pass in 4 years, that it's now, but it will go away because of our system. But our friendship should last forever. A president, this president or that president, will be here for 4 years, maybe 8 years, and then it's gone. But my relationship with a congregant should last forever. So why should I damage that relationship? How can I disagree with somebody who has a difference of opinion of mine?
But I'm going to push back on you.
What?
Because I'm going to argue with you a little bit, because you said that your number one thing is loving.
Right.
So if we see something in the world that's not loving, that's damaging or whatever. And this is a controversy at our temple too. So I'm curious, does the rabbi speak of it, or does the rabbi?
So let me share with you.
Okay.
Here's a story from the Talmud. Okay.
Yeah.
The Torah and the Talmud are my guides.
Okay.
So here's a story from the Talmud. So a rabbi walks around and he sees his enemy and his friend coming down the street with loaded stuff on their wagon. Where they come down the street, and all of a sudden, both they stumble over some rocks, and his friend's wagon falls down to the floor, and his enemy's wagon, all the stuff falls down on the floor. Then they're asking in the Talmud, who should you go and help first? And the answer is your enemies, because you are able to turn your enemy, you have the opportunity to turn your enemy into your friend. Your friend is already your friend, which is great, but your enemy, you have an opportunity to turn into a friend. This lesson, of course, guides me and said, wait a minute, we are not going to turn our friends into our enemies. How should we communicate with them, right? Every person has the right to their opinion. And my role is to respect their opinion. I don't have to agree with them, but I do need to respect their opinion. And this is one of the reasons, and you know that, Susan, this is one of the reasons that I not only stop people to ask them about prayer, but I also stop them to ask them during Dvar Torah, during my teaching of Torah. And when I teach Torah anytime, I like the idea when people bring different Torahs. I like the idea that have different opinions, because this stimulates the juice. That stimulates the juice when people feel differently than you are. If everybody feels the same as I do, it'll be very boring, wouldn't it?
You know, when you said this stimulates the juice, I first thought you said this stimulates the Jews, which also could be. So speaking about that, I want to also talk about your decision to be very involved with women prisoners in prisons. That besides running the shul and having people at your house and eating out of your kitchen and opening your cabinets and helping themselves, and studying with you, you also travel. Where do you go? You go to a prison. How far away?
Corona.
Right. And how often do you go?
And now during Corona, I stopped going, but beforehand, I will go every other week.
And what were you doing there?
Well, I would go, I would leave. I had to go before traffic. So I would leave like 12:30, 1 o'clock, and I wouldn't get home till 10. And that was very long day, very, very long day and night. And it became dangerous when I would fall asleep sometime on the road. But one of the traditions that we have is to go down, the Hasidic teaching is to go down into the pit, just like with Joseph, we just studied, go down to the pit in order to raise the sparks of godliness that I believe that each person has it, even those who are in prison, or maybe more so. The harder work is to find the spark in a woman who committed a murder, Jewish woman who committed a murder, or to find the spark with one of the prisoners who later on, after she was in my class for 6 months or so, showed me that she had on both hands and on the back of her neck the swastika, the Nazi swastika. Find the spark in that kind of a woman and elevate it to the point that she said, I want to become Jewish.
So you would go there, and what would you teach?
Talmud.
Really?
Honest to goodness. First, I taught them ethics. but it was not challenging enough for me. And I want to be challenged myself. So I taught them Talmud, and Talmud was incredible because it teaches a person a way of thinking.
So how many people in your class?
Well, it all depends again, if they had work days, if they were able to leave, if they had, but on an average, I had anywhere between, I would say 7 to sometimes 20.
And they weren't all Jewish.
Most of them were, but not all, because I did not want to differentiate between Black and brown and Asian and white, because each person has a spark, right? Each person has a spark. So if somebody who was Jewish and wanted to bring her roommate to the class, I allowed it. Why not? You know?
And what did you see? I'm sorry I interrupted you. I just wanted the background. What did you see for, how it affected them at the prison, these women?
Well, I can share with you, and I don't want to take the credit all to myself, to my Talmud class. They had to take all kinds of other classes in order to improve on their behavior and the way of thinking. And I stayed in touch with my prisoners, my Jewish prisoners. I stayed in touch with them even after they left the prison, after the prison, in order to see if they are on the right path. And if they move to a different location, different state, different place in California, I would look up the town they went to and found a synagogue for them in order for them to belong, to have continuous Jewish influence on their life, and to belong, and not to forget what they learned with me and with others. You know,
somebody wrote in a question: did you ever meet prisoners who had never met a Jew before?
That Nazi girl,
she'd never met a Jew before.
She never met a Jew, and I couldn't believe it. I said, how can you hate somebody who you never met, you don't even know? And it was unfortunate because she lived in a crack house. She was not Jewish, but she wanted to convert, as I told you after. And so she lived in a house that was filled with drugs, heavy drugs, and they hated the Jews. So she automatically hated the Jews, she said. She didn't even know. She never met anybody who was Jewish, but she hated them because it was there.
That's a problem in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So you're not ritualistically observant. I mean, you keep kosher, but you drive on Shabbat. You know, you come to your thing, you use whatever. But you are very spiritually religious, I would say. And I want you to, and I think that informs the way you live your life, the way you are a rabbi. And I want you to talk a little bit about the importance of God and what you feel is your mission as a teacher in your community as a rabbi.
Oh, $1 million question. I think it's very important for me personally, really very important for me personally, that I would, how shall I say that? That I would be able to walk the talk. Walk the talk. It's really is very, very important for me that there is no separation between the persona and the real. And that's living a life of truth. That when I teach classes, I share with people my personal struggles, my personal journeys. And all of us have many journeys. So there is no separation, and please forgive me, but many people, many of my congregants say that you are one person that walks the talk. And you are a role model because you walk the talk. You don't just teach and preach, but you live it. And
really your living is about love. I mean,
right.
It's very much about love and making people feel loved from the rabbi. I mean, it's interesting. It's not to be taught as much as to feel emotionally loved. And that seems, for me, when people feel that warmth, which you have role modeled for me, they flower, they open up, and we use our intuition to kind of try to give people what they need where they are, and not, and invite them to come with us, but not insist or criticize or, impose, actually.
Right, right. I'm not the first one who said, all we need is love.
Right. And I want to just conclude, and then we'll open it up to you. Shared with me. So you and I had a little discussion yesterday about a Pirkei Avot, an Ethics of the Fathers quote, where it says, find yourself a teacher and make a friend.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So I read it as, find yourself a teacher, a rabbi, a mentor, and also get a friend. In other words, you need a teacher and a friend. And your interpretation was what?
So here's a little Hebrew. Aseh lecha rav ukne lecha chaver. It says, make yourself a rabbi, and in the process, you acquire yourself a friend and a judge, and in everything that the rabbi merits, right? So in Hebrew, when it says aseh lecha rav, make yourself a rabbi, and it says u kne lecha chaver, u, not ve, u kne lecha chaver. It's not and you make yourself a friend, but and you will find a friend within the rabbi.
So you saw it as the rabbi is the friend.
Exactly.
I saw this, there's the rabbi and the friend.
And somebody else who is also a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you live by that motto, don't you?
Yes.
The rabbi is your friend.
Yes. So how can your rabbi be a friend? How can you be vulnerable enough to others so others feel that they can actually open up to you? They can actually, you can be the carrier of their secrets. You can be trusted with their secrets and still continue to love them in spite of their secrets. So I think that's a huge challenge in leadership. And the only way for me is to be able, as I said a little bit before, to be able to open up and show your own vulnerability. Because the moment they see you, the rabbi, as a human being, as another person just like me, just like me, another person that has the same struggles. I always tell people the only difference between me and you is that I happen to study longer a particular topic. But otherwise, we are the same.
But
we are the same. I listen, I take people twice a year to the mikvah on before Rosh Hashanah and before Passover.
I went with you.
Yeah. When I get into the mikvah, all the other women around me see me in my nakedness. There is nothing more to hide. There is nothing more to hide.
So my last question, and then we're going to open it up, is, do you think people want their rabbi to be that vulnerable and open? Do you think, have you found that it was I mean, is that what they want, do you think? Or what's been the result in your community?
I had a person, two people who could not take this level of honesty, who just simply could not take this level of honesty. And they left to bigger synagogues where they were able to assimilate or disappear within everybody else. And I totally understand that.
So, it's interesting because in your synagogue, everybody has to be known. When I came to Wilshire Boulevard Temple, and I was in rabbinical school, so I came in 2011. I was ordained in 2013. So I convened all kinds of people, getting to know the temple. It's a huge temple. And people would say to me, Rabbi, I've come to this temple for 30 years and I don't know anybody. Rabbi, I've been coming for 50 years and I don't know anybody. And I myself, because of you, but I think, and I pushed our other rabbis too. And then Jody Berman, I have to give her a lot of credit, came in. We've really, really tried to change that, but that was the culture, and that's in a lot. You come, you do your Jewish thing, and you leave. And I don't know anybody. And this is the truth. I hope I'm not going to get my colleagues annoyed with me for this, but I said to them when I wasn't the rabbi, I was still in school, but I was in all the meetings. Just ask the people to turn to each other and say Shabbat Shalom.
Right.
People are shy. They're not going to talk to the stranger next to them. But if you say, turn to someone and say Shabbat Shalom, you're helping them break the ice. And I really learned that from you. And they wouldn't do it for like a year. It made them very uncomfortable because it was so like, what now? If we do it all the time. In every service, we say, turn and say Shabbat Shalom to some. But when I asked them to do this in the beginning, I got a lot of pushback because it was like, it's too personal. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I know that I was inspired. A lot of this stuff that I do, I was inspired from this breaking the barriers, this personal connection, the knowing of people, and then helping people know each other really comes from, I think, something you take for granted, but it was not common. I mean, maybe it's more common today, but certainly not 18 years ago when you started your shul.
Right.
So I want to thank you so much. And I want to we have 15 minutes. I want to ask Hannah to let people join us if they would like to ask any questions. Right now, we'll just invite you all to come on and open your cameras. If you have any comments or questions for Rabbi Miriam.
May I add something?
Of course.
Yeah. You see, a relationship has to be based on truth. The uniqueness about the word truth in Hebrew is emet. Emet means in Hebrew truth. And I think to every kind of relationship, including relationship between me and you or between me and God, has to be based on truth. And when a relationship is based on truth, it will stick, it would last. When it's not, it's just the walls and the pretendness and so on, it's not a relationship anymore.
You're right. You're right. So, okay, a lot of you have not chosen to reveal yourself, even though we have like 21 people, or maybe, I don't know, maybe can make it more of a gallery here.
Can you open up for us?
Oh, here, it's open. If you just.
Okay. Susan, I hear you, but I don't think you can see me. It's Miriam Hamrell.
I know, Miriam. Touch your little video. Your little video icon.
I know, but I can't seem to get on. Can I ask a question anyhow?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Miriam, my rabbi Miriam, whom I know for so many years, we have the same name, and I have adored you as you know it since the first time I ever met you. which had to be 40 years ago. I think more. You were maybe 5 years old. But at any rate, what you said is very important. Very, we've taken it to heart. Kol hapninim sheyatzu mipich nichnasu elibi. All your pearls of wisdom. But I have something to say, which is a little maybe disquieting, disturbing. I admire your tolerance of those who do not hold your opinion politically. And you're very different. This was very applicable years ago when I, being a Democrat, had all kinds of discussions with my Republican friends.
But Miriam, we're not going to get into politics here.
Not. Okay, but then I'm going to ask her something I admire and I'm envious of. These politics today are not politics. They are with us every single moment of our day.
Miriam, we're not
and
talking
therefore,
about politics.
Okay, then I won't finish my question.
Okay, I don't want to go there because we
Okay,
don't have
there.
I have feelings too.
And
believe
it
me.
doesn't have to do with politics, but I won't go there anyhow.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment or a question? Ellen Bornstein, yes.
Miriam, that was so beautiful. And one thing I love about Worship Boulevard is we've had Blacks worship with us at the beautiful synagogue and Muslims. And, you know, what you said was so beautiful. What temple are you a part of? I'm curious.
Ahavat Torah.
And where's that?
It used to be in Brentwood.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and
Now
moved?
we don't meet anymore.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
No, you don't meet because of COVID, but it
COVID,
will go
yeah.
back to Brentwood.
Yes, yes, yes.
Actually, it's in a church in Brentwood Glen,
oh.
which is on Friday has Muslim community with a woman imam. Saturday has a Jewish community with Rabbi Miriam, and Sunday has a Christian service with a woman pastor. So it's a female house of worship, I would say, female-led house of worship.
Yeah, 3 women under one roof.
3 women.
And we, you know,
Wait, Ellen, you're muted. Ellen, you're muted.
okay, there's one God is my way of looking at it. And we're all human beings. And so I just loved what you had to say. It was the most meaningful, beautiful thing. So thank you for making 2021 start out nicely. Thank you.
You can see
Thank
why
you.
she's my mentor.
Yes,
Anyone else want to? Joan Harrison.
Yes, I second that emotion of Ellen's. Thank you, Rabbi Miriam. I know that I don't want to talk politics either, but I do wonder about certain issues like immigration or even what happened last week. Those are not really political issues. At least I don't think they are. Are you able to address those from the pulpit? You know, referencing your spirit of love, and how do you do that?
Okay. So it's a two questions in one, right? Is that what, Joan? Is that?
Yes. I'm asking, can you do that? And if so, how?
Okay. So the answer is yes, always yes. But instead of turning into the politics and the chaos, I prepared a sentence, a paragraph at the end of services last week, and expressed how I felt, how I was torn, how I was horrified about the behavior, how fearful I am for our democracy, but ended it with asking my cantor ahead of time, with asking people to please remember America the Beautiful. And then he ended the service with singing America the Beautiful. I think everybody was crying because we want to believe that there, in spite of insurgency and hatred, there is still a spark of lovingness in one another. And we had to end with hope in the beauty and what really democracy stands for. So that's how I dealt with that. instead of divisiveness, realizing that we have it, realizing that the potential in every one of us, but if we work on it, we can overcome the hatred.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Did you have the same approach as far as the immigration ban was concerned?
I'm myself an immigrant.
Right.
You know, so big time.
Thank
The
you.
answer is yes, big time.
Okay, so, Talia.
Hi, thank you so much. This has been really beautiful to hear about a female rabbi being a trailblazer. And I'm so sorry about what happened on the beach with your kippah. But that whole feeling of like our personal freedoms and then being able to feel safe, like that's I guess the whole balance. And you seem to have been able to walk a path where somehow you're able to find that strength. I personally feel, even just like when I'm outside and a neighbor's smoking and I'm having to breathe that secondhand smoke. We could also take that to wearing masks, where I know Rabbi Leader has shared, you definitely can speak out. You definitely can say, because they're infringing upon our ability to, they're not being respectful of life. So it's just that whole idea of being able to speak out or to take the actions that may instill like some anger, like the man who got out of his car and went up to your car. And so when would you draw the line in terms of your own safety, in terms of speaking out or being free with your ability to be a trailblazer?
Could you reframe the question? I'm not very clear on it.
Her question is, how far are you willing to go to jeopardize your own safety in order to break the rules or speak out or stand up for something? How do you balance that?
Well, first of all, just so you know, when the moment I was drafted to the army, I actually volunteered because I came back to Israel. I had some time off and came back to Israel. I actually volunteered to go to the army. The moment I go to the army, I am declaring that I'm willing to sacrifice my life for the sake of the state of Israel. Right there, right? But your question is for the ordinary life, the day-to-day life, how far am I going? This is something that is very, very important to me. How far do I push my own boundaries? How far do I push my own line of safety and security? So knowing that I grew up in Israel, knowing that I had some built-in over the years mistrust of Arabs/Muslims. When my congregants, a few people in the congregation, had worked with Muslims and Christians, they asked me if I would join their club. And I always found excuses. You know what they did? They brought the club into the synagogue. And I told them I don't feel comfortable. Beforehand, I told them I don't feel comfortable, and we'll just do whatever you need to do without me. And then there was a ring in my house, but somebody else will take care of it. And anyway, the moment they brought the Muslims, at that point it was only the Muslims, into our synagogue, I had to face the truth, right? Truth is a guiding light, right? So I had to face the truth. So in our meetings, in the first meeting, I told them how uncomfortable I am, how difficult it is, Dafka, particularly because I grew up in Israel, how difficult it is for me to come to this meeting, to this first meeting, and how, anyway, and so on and so on. But truth came out, in order to establish any relationship, the truth has to be the first building block, right? And I told him exactly where my heart was. At the end of the meeting, we were able to hug and kiss one another. And tears were running down my face big time. I was sobbing, not only crying, I was sobbing, thinking about it. And I said to people, I was able to see your humanity. I was able to see you, not your religion, not your politics, not your ideology. I was able to see you. And when I'm able to see the heart of the person, I'm able to see the spark of holiness in that person, whoever that is, including my Nazi girl. So if I'm able to see, and what I forgot to tell you is that both my parents were Holocaust survivors, my father from Auschwitz and my mother from Theresienstadt. So to be able to see the spark of God in a Nazi girl, I'm definitely able to see the spark of God in a Muslim girl.
Somebody else? What time is it? Yeah, like one more question. Anyone?
We have one more question from Linda Badger.
Linda?
I first met Rabbi Miriam in prison. She'd come every 2 weeks. She'd always dress nicely and made us happy. And she'd always be on time. Well, one time she came dressed really strange and she was late. And I said, Rabbi, what happened? And she said they wouldn't let her into the prison because she had a blue stripe in her dress. And she went to the closest Kmart, bought a $5 dress off the clearance rack, went into the dressing room like Superman did, changed, and came back and said to the guards, you're not going to keep me away from my girls. So
Wow.
I was released 7 years ago after 28 years based on my innocence. And Rabbi Miriam was the only female rabbi who would come in as a volunteer and teach a small little group of Jews who didn't pay dues. There was no publicity involved. She would just come in every 2 weeks. And when I first got out, I was in Arcadia with my family because the governor ordered my immediate release. And she came, she took me out to lunch and she said, I'm going to have you come to the first Shabbat. I will have you brought. I wasn't driving. I didn't know what a computer was and I didn't even remember what a phone was. And then I will come, we will find a synagogue in your area and we will talk to the rabbi. So the first Shabbat, I came into her synagogue and she never could get rid of me. The first 5 months, I went to the library and I said, I need a Thomas guide. How do I get from Arcadia to the west side? And the young lady said, what's a Thomas guide? So finally, we found 3 buses. It took me 4 hours. And I spent the first 5 months of my freedom on the bus and the train, which I really enjoyed. And so now today I'm the tech person in her community because I spent the first year in Apple too. So
More than that.
Thank you.
Yeah, more than that. Let me elaborate a little bit. Linda lived with me and my husband for 4.5 years. And she is today our executive director.
Look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for sharing your spark with us. Everybody who meets you is going to feel that spark. It's so obvious. And what happened was we met at our rabbinic. She graduated before I started. At our rabbinical school, we had like a retreat. And we sat down, hello, with coffee. Who are you? We talked for like 3 hours. And Miriam said, you have to come and be my intern. I want you to be my intern. And I went, okay. It was like love. You've got to be with me. And I was there for 2 years and it was, and we've been dear friends ever since.
That's right.
So,
Thank you.
and she is still my role model. She's a holy woman in my eyes. I have to say that.
I
So
love you, Susan.
I love you and I love all of you, and have a beautiful day. And it was so nice to share this hour with you.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you, Susan.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for your
This was really special. Thank you.
Really special. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad you could join us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Miriam, are you still there?
Yes.
Miriam?
Yes.
Oh, it's Miriam Alpert. I want to thank you for, I learned something new from you today.
Thank you.
I've studied Pirkei Avot over the years, or I study it now once a week. And there've been so many translations of Knei Lecha Chaver, Asay Lecha Rav, Knei Lecha Chaver. So many translations of the word Knei, as you know. And today I learned something new, that make yourself a rabbi, and this rabbi, not the, but this person, this rabbi can also be
Your friend.
totally depending on how you want your friendship to be with the rabbi and what the rabbi wants her friendship to be with you. But the idea of a rabbi and a friend, I love that. Because
Thank
I
you.
have that in Susan Nanus. I hope I have, because she's a rabbi. I learn from her all the time. She's a friend. And I have it with a few other rabbis, because I've been around a long time. I'm only 94.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank
And
you.
you still look the same as when I first met you, when you were a 30-year-old.
Thank you. God bless you.
I
Thank
wish
you
you
so much.
so much happiness and health, especially in the coming year. A lot of inner support.
Thank you, Milton.
So much inner fulfillment of you personally.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. Stay well.
Thank you. He has indeed blessed.
Thank you.
I study 3 or 4 rabbis every day. He has blessed.